The pastors would tell me that if I would only submit to my husband, then we wouldn't have any marriage problems. Now, any counselor.
Some people may be confused about the title in the sense that domestic abuse and then church abuse, how do the two link? What does that even mean? So can you talk to us about, I guess, possibly the first time you experienced domestic abuse and how it linked in with the church? Now, I'm aware that at the time you may not even have known it was actually abuse that you were going through. I get that. And I think that a lot of people can even relate to that. It's like until you step out, you're like, oh, this is what I went through, you know. So explain to us, what were some of the things that would take place? You know, you're with your husband, you're married, you live together at this point. What was the nature of your relationship between you and your husband? What were the type of things that would happen? Just talk us through that. Let us understand what it was to be Diana at that point in your life.
The kind of environment that I was in would enable the abuse. You know, in the fundamental Baptist church that I was involved in, you know, you did what you were told as a woman. You didn't have really any say in it very much. You did whatever the pastor told you to do or what your husband told you to do, or you had to submit to. If you weren't married, it was your father. You know, you didn't get to do a lot of things that the men got to do. Now, when I met my ex and we started dating, I did not pay attention to the red flags that were there. Okay. That said, well, this person is an abusive person, because they don't teach you that in the church. They don't teach you that in school. You know, I did have nouthetic counseling classes in my training, you know, how to counsel people, but I don't ever remember getting any training about abuse. It just wasn't talked about. And so I remember back when my husband when we were dating, he would have these mood swings and he would have these anger issues and he would tell me what to do. We were not married, but he would act like, well, I'm your authority, even though we weren't married yet. And he had issues with, you know, speaking to me in a certain way, like his language was very foul. The way he treated his mother wasn't very good. He didn't like being told what to do. He was very proud. We were having dinner with my mom once, and my fiance tapped his glass, which meant go up and, you know, get me some more. And my mom's like, your legs aren't broken. You go get your own dinner. Go get your own seconds. And, you know, of course, I was told in the church, you know, as a future wife, you know, I need to serve my husband and serve and wait on him. Which, yeah, I love to serve people, but I like to serve out of the kindness of my heart, not because somebody made me. Yeah. So we married, and this is the Reader's Digest version of this story here, but I was really shocked when the abuse started right away. I mean, on the honeymoon. I mean, we had this bed and breakfast we were at, and we were in the middle of college, on college break during our honeymoon. And he did not want to be intimate on our honeymoon, which was really strange because, like, okay, isn't this what they do on a honeymoon, right? He and neither of us were virgins, but we practiced what we called secondary virginity until we got married. And, you know, I was pretty comfortable with my body, and it was pretty, you know, I didn't have any issues with sex. And so I was, you know, just communicating with him, you know, what I needed or how my body works, because, you know, we're new with each other. And he got really offended, got really angry with me, pointing things out. And he, again, left the bed and breakfast, and he's like circling around the neighborhood in his car because, his ego was blasted or something. And I'm left behind crying my eyes out like, I think I made a mistake marrying this guy. But I knew I was trapped because, they don't allow divorce in the Baptist church. And I was like praying to the Lord, well, I'm just going to do the best that I can. Maybe things will get better, right? Things will get better. I'm going to make, lemonade out of lemons and be the best wife that I can. And of course, we got back from our honeymoon, and, 2 weeks went by, and we hadn't been intimate again. And he's watching.
You hadn't.
We hadn't been intimate again since the honeymoon.
On the whole, using sex as some sort of control. I've noticed when it comes to domestic abuse, it's a lot to do with power and control.
Yes.
So the abuser wants to have that feeling of power and control over the victim.
And people would ask me, well, why didn't I leave him? Well, as I was saying, the legalistic church denomination would not allow divorce for any reason. Divorce are treated like outcasts. They're not allowed to serve fully in the church. And I had even taken my husband to 3 different counselors in order to get some help. And that's another problem with abusers is that
3 different counselors within the church?
Yes, because that was the only real counseling. You didn't go to a shrink. That was, or a secular marriage counselor. They didn't think that was, that was worldly, right? You went to the church for help. You didn't go outside the church. So another thing with abusers is they don't want help. They don't think they need any help. So the pastors would tell me that if I would only submit to my husband, then we wouldn't have any marriage problems. Now, any counselor that had any real solutions, my ex would fold his arms and not participate in any of the sessions, wouldn't do the homework they gave us. And, he would say, I don't want them telling me that I'm a sinner and preach Bible verses to me. And I would tell the counselors, well, what you're telling me that I need to submit, but what about all these issues over here that we need to deal with? What about his anger? What about his, the way he talks to me, the way he controls me? But they would dismiss all those things.
S says, I do believe in submission, but you shouldn't be forced to submit. It's because of him why you couldn't submit. Ooh. Yeah.
Good one.
It's because of him why you actually couldn't submit. So how about I believe that we need partners, husbands, that we actually can submit to in the way they carry themselves, in the way they love you, in the way they treat you. So yes, I agree with this. It's because of who they are, which will make it, I guess, easy for us to submit. Miss Kenny says, I think that people use religion as a form of oppression. One has to be very careful. You're right, Kenny. Angela Fireman says, but is this submission to a husband reading the Bible upside down? Yes, Angela, upside down.
Indeed. Well, they always leave out that, the husband is supposed to love the wife as Christ loved the church. And they always leave that part out.
Why are you leaving that part out? That is a big deal. If you're going to say to a woman, you have to submit to your husband, you also have to tell the man what his requirements are too, which is to love your wife as Christ loved the church. It goes hand in hand. Nobody's losing or lacking. Everybody, both man and woman, are supposed to gain in the marriage.
It does say also too that we are supposed to submit to one another in humility. So
yeah,
in love of the Lord. Was he doing that? No.
Dana, speak us through how you actually got out of this situation. When was it that moment where you were free? Let's use the word free. When did you get out, and what took place for you to get out?
Wow. It was our 13th anniversary, and it was a disaster.
Mm.
And the next day, I woke up so depressed, and I thought I could not live another year like this. And one of my friends, her name is Linda, I had called her up crying again about what this man had done to me, and she said, I'm tired of you calling and telling me about this abusive man that you're married to. You need to leave him.
Mm.
And she said something to me that I'll never forget, because at that point I was like, well, I can't leave. She said, God is not going to stop loving you no
Mm.
matter what happens. He's not going to stop loving you for leaving your abusive husband. And
Mm.
that was like a brick upside the head. And I
Mm.
realized at that moment that she was right. So that day I cried out to God, and I said that, I can't live like this anymore. And I was willing to take whatever consequences that would come as a result of leaving my husband. I had to
Mm.
get out before it destroyed me, because I know this sounds terrible, but I really thought that God was going to punish me for leaving my husband, because
Yeah.
that's what the church, you know, makes you believe, that God isn't going to bless you anymore because you leave an abusive man.
Mm.
And I knew my husband would not let me leave, and so my three friends that I mentioned offered to help me secretly escape when my husband went out of town for 2 weeks. And
Mm.
I was so terrified that he would find out, because there was a 4-month period that between when I decided to leave and when I actually left. I didn't sleep for months. I was so afraid he was going to find out. And I lost my job 2 weeks before my departure. And I almost lost hope of getting out. But my other friend, Julie, she said that I could live with her and her family until I got on my feet. She said if
Wow.
I didn't leave now, I would not get another chance for a long time.
Wow.
So I left everything behind, including my two dogs,
Mm.
um, my house. I had a car in my name that was paid for. I left everything behind. I just took my personal belongings. And when he found out that I had left, all of a sudden he wanted counseling, and I was against it. And he was upset and he apologized to me. But when
Mm.
we talked about the issues in our marriage, it was the same song and dance. So I told
Mm.
him, I forgive you for what you did to me, but I'm going through with this divorce.
Mm.
And I went to sign the papers, and again, this is the Reader's Digest version of my story. Then just for time's sake, I'm just doing the highlights. But
Yeah.
I was finally free to start a new life for myself.
Mm.
The next 2 years were very hard. I lost everything just like I thought I would. My
Mm.
friends chose sides. I was ostracized from my church. I went through bankruptcy and unemployment for 8 months. Now I
Mm.
started dating again, but I met too many men just like him.
Yeah.
Uh, I held on to the promise, though, that God had a plan for my life,
Wow.
and
Wow.
I found a new church that accepted me as I was. And I
Mm.
started praying and reading my Bible
The
again.
outcome is a story of hope, yes, for others who are currently in the same situation. Awesome testimony. Absolutely.
God is your refuge. God is full of grace and mercy, and He doesn't want you to be abused. Contrary to popular belief, He didn't cause your abuse. He is mortified and He is grieving at your abuse. And I
Mm.
hope that some of my story would have inspired you to take action today.